Yale has, to this extent, protected its scholars, unlike Columbia, who forced, for example, Catherine Frank, a prominent law professor, into early retirement. So it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my children and my desire to send a warning uh, to Americans that is consonant with the work I've been doing.
What's a fascist?
So he's sending a message to Americans. I just know how relatable a Yale philosophy professor is to most Americans.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Aaron, I just want to share. I forgot his name already.
Jason Stanley.
Nobody has ever heard of you or your work on fascism. No one.
Well, I mean, good for him for calling out. I'm being serious here. The Trump administration's crackdown on free speech when it comes to supporters of Palestine.
That's correct.
I'm glad he can recognize that.
But did he mention it? Did he mention Israel or the thing? He just said kind of vague. Because I bet in Toronto they don't much cotton to a guy being anti-Zionist, just like here in fascist America, right?
Here's more from Greg Breek.
Why would you hire fascists in your country? Why would we let them come up here and hire fascists?
Explains why he's fleeing the U.S. in fear with Yale's Timothy Snyder and his wife Marcy Shore to Canada, which he calls the Ukraine of North America. So Jason Stanley is fleeing to Canada, which he positively calls the Ukraine of North America. And
Wow.
maybe is he referring to the time when Canada gave a standing ovation to a Nazi in their parliament? A Ukrainian Nazi in their parliament?
Maybe the nuance that I always bring up, because I don't buy, well, Nazi is fascist. I say they're two different things. I know some commies say the same thing, but fascism was the Italian one. So they have the Ukrainian version, Nazism.
Yeah.
And he wants to raise his kid in a place where they can salute an old Nazi.
where they give a standing ovation to a Nazi. For those who forgot this was not too long ago when the Canadian Parliament, led by their Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, gave a standing ovation to a literal Nazi war criminal, a Ukrainian who had fought alongside the Nazis in the Second World War, and they had to apologize for that.
I bet he's worried about Elon's autistic hand signaling is his top secret. I bet he's worried about that, but he's fleeing to Ukraine away from the Nazism.
You're a scholar of fascism, and you're fleeing fascism, and you think it's a good thing that Canada is the Ukraine of North America, when, again, Canada celebrated a literal Nazi, and Ukraine has literal Nazis embedded in its armed forces. It's just a little bit unfair.
Scholar, Aaron, as you know.
Yeah.
But I do remember after the Charlottesville Tiki Torch times, which I'm sure this guy bemoaned.
Yes, definitely.
As Nazi, a bunch of those guys, the alt-right, the worst of them, went to Ukraine.
100%.
After.
Yeah. Well, someone else who went to Ukraine is actually Jason Stanley, which we'll hear about in a second. But here's more from Glenn. Jason Stanley says Canada is Ukraine because it's a bastion of freedom and nobility threatened by an authoritarian neighbor. The absolute narcissism and melodrama of these people. They are those whose civil there are those whose civil liberties are threatened. Celebrated rich Yale professors are not among them.
He said nobility, though. It's funny, they celebrate freedom and nobility,
yes,
which is what he considers himself, and that's what that is.
Hatcher knows that Timothy Snyder is very wealthy by heralding himself the world's leading warrior against fascism. His book implores others not to anticipatorily obey Trump. 2 months into Trump's term, he flees the U.S. as if he's an underground resistance leader in occupied France. So it's true. It's all about how, don't obey fascism, don't bow down. And what